Flow of the mind. Flow of the mind is, it's all based on the Targum Yonasan's Pirush of the pasuk Hanikra B'Shmi. This pasuk itself comes behemshech to a description of kibbutz Goliath. And no Jew will remain behind, whichever begins the Maimon with it very emotionally. And the Targum Yonasan says this all begin in the schus of Kol Hanikra B'Shmi, those upon whom my name was called, and that's the others. And then there were other diukim, which I won't repeat again now, but we'll revisit at the end of the Maimon. Other questions on the pasuk, on the Targum Yonasan's Pirush of the pasuk. What's relevant is that the Gula comes in the schus of the others and the Moishe. Avosachin tzadikayo, your righteous forefathers. So obviously in Moishe, this is the union of Rosh Surim, Mikvois Ashereno, as explained by the Medrash and the Zohar, namely the Ovis and the Moishe, namely Chachma and Bina. And this is invested in every Jew in Yisrael de La'ila. He's talking about Yidden, and he's saying that they are rooted. I see in them the Tzulim and the Gvois. So that means that Chachma and Bina is invested in every Yid. Yisrael de La'ila was a beautiful explanation of how we arrive at the number 600,000 Shishim B'Riboy Neshamas. You recall the Cheshbon? How do we arrive at 600,000? Why is that the number? That is not added to or subtracted. There's only branches of it, and many branches. No?
6 midas.
The 6 midas.
Each with the 10 spheres that are included from all the 10 spheres.
Each midas it's included. Each midas is made up of the other 10 spheres. So that's already, that number now is what? 60. Why are we doing that? We're multiplying it 10 to the power of 5 times 10 times 10 times 10, 5 times. Why? Because the midas come from Bina. And why is Bina associated with hay? First of all, where do we see it's associated with hay? Yud Kei Vav Kei. Yud is Chachma, He is Bina. Why Yud is Chachma? We understand it's in the Kudah, it incorporates Behelim, all 10 spheres. Why is Hey Bina? Why is number 5 Bina?
Breadth and depth and the expansion of the form that being of the population.
So that's 6. That's 4 directions up and down. That would be 6. Yeah, it's made on the hay gvudas, the 5 gvudas, which are manifested in the 5 organs of speech. Hay is associated with gvuda.
Has anyone done the calculation
Of
going from those numbers to what is 600,000?
Yeah, we just did it, right? So it's 6 times 10, 60, to factorial. How do you say it?
6 times.
It's times 10 times 10 times 10 times 10, 5 times for the hay gvudas. The shleimus of the 6 midas, which is 60. You do that times 10, 5 times, it's factorial 10 to the power of 5. That's how you say it in math. That's 600,000. So the number hey 5 because of the hey gvudas. Now what's the connection to? Hagufakasha? Why did they used to make the organs of speech which differentiate the simple breath or voice into 5? That's another husband. 5 components to Gevura. At any rate, that he doesn't go into, and it is explained, although it escapes me now, but there is a beer as to why Gevura needs 5 stages to articulate something in division. Division is associated with the number 5. So, point being that every year that's invested in him, that Yisrael de Leila, which Yisrael de Sata is a reflection of, Yisrael de Leila being the 6 Zod Atzilis and its breakdown of 600,000, as we just described. So this is all rooted in what? Chachma and Bina. And now we're in the middle still. There's tremendous arichas in Chachma and Bina. The first and the critical point is, which begins in the second paragraph of Eis Gimel, is to note what? Behecha, just look at it, glance at it, and tell me it's also based on this positing this first observable fact, or not observable so obviously, but must be. What must be? That the midas exist in Chachma and Bina. As he goes on to say later, in Chachma in the way of Areno, distantly, and in Bina in the way of Ashereno, which is Habot, a close scrutinizing look. But they have to, because they are the source of it. And we're not talking about midas that are instinctual. We're talking about midas that are born of Seichel. And midah you wouldn't have otherwise. You're not inclined that way. But you're inclined towards that emotional disposition because you appreciate the value of what it is that you're appreciating. And therefore the appropriate emotional response or engagement. So there has to be, it exists in Chachma, exists in Bina. What's the mashal that he used? The famous mashal to explain how the midas are in Chachma in contrast to the midas that are present in Bina. That would be what? So the Tzurach Halamish is a mashal for Chachma, and Bina is the burning coal, and hence Tzur, Timuresh Tzurim. He describes the others as Tzurim, peaks, mountains, invoking also this imagery of the midas being there in a very latent way, requiring force to extract them, but present nonetheless. And Bina is the outcome is almost obvious. Once the analysis has, not almost, it is obvious. Once the analysis developed, it's clear what the emotional response is going to be towards this thing. Attraction or rejection. And that one way of describing chesed and gevura. Now, the next part of the Maimer, which we're in the middle kind of, is to explain the difference between the effect of Chachma born to bear directly on the midas or Bina, different kind of midas. And he spoke at the end of the first paragraph of Eis Daled, that's the difference between Moichin the Yanika and Moichin the Gadlus. Moichin the Yanika means Moichin that provide nourishment, as it were, that's Bina. Moichin the Gadlus, that is Chachma. That's the effect of Chachma, which the Maimer is in the middle of exploring and explaining. So he started to explain Iskafin is hapcha. Iskafin is hapcha are all emotional states of refinement, both emotional states of refinement, born as a result of conviction, as a result of an appreciation of what is right and what is wrong. So the first level is iskafia, is because he understands clearly whatever the meditation is, the outcome, the folly of sin, how he's going to burn in hell, whatever his particular level of meditation is. So therefore, that affects it, notwithstanding, that's iskafia. The effect of bina on the midas is when it's all the way down to das, when it's a true conviction, no matter how the heart is raging and burning like a furnace, it's all premise of Tanya, because he has reached a level of absolute conviction that he can't do this because of its terribly destructive, whatever his meditation is. That wants us to appreciate what's destructive is because it's idolatrous, and nobody wants to serve idols. No one's ready and willing to, as we just read in Hayom Yom yesterday, right? Not he wants, or is he able to tear himself asunder from the Eibishter? So when a person summons that conviction, notwithstanding his desire to sin, whatever it is, he won't. And that's the natural order of things, that intellect, once engaged in this way, naturally rules the heart. A person has seen a picture of his lungs and understands what the cigarette does, and he sees that keeps it this way, that's it. He's not going to be his grandchildren's simchas. They're notwithstanding the fact he still craves to smoke, he won't. Still wants to, but he won't pick it up, because that's das, that's the conviction that naturally dispels the midah. But that's only iskafia. And that's when bina is brought to bear. So bina, in other words, if it's because I understand it, I understand, what's the right way to behave and what's good and what's bad and consequences, it's all very crystal clear, not just academically, but personally connects to it because he sees the consequences to him, not in the abstraction. That's what das is. Das is personalizing the idea. It's not just true abstractly. This is what's happening to me. So then the midah, meaning the iskafia, is the result. It's a practical midah. You're going to do this thing or not. Chesed Buddha in the practical sense. But he's not changing his personality. The midah, when he says here midah in the maamar, he means his personality. He's not changing his personality, he just has a control of his personality. He's still the rotten, miserable fellow that he was before, to quote Moishe Paul. I think he had a few more adjectives, but I don't remember them. I think I told you. It's after Mashke once, after I was after Mashke, he says, yeah, it's good, it improves you. Apparently that was the thing he used to say. You're rotten, miserable character, something like that. Temporary, we have a temporary reprieve, what I'm looking for, although it can go the other way. God forbid, it most often does. Become more obnoxious. Very dangerous thing. Akol panim, that's bina. As we're going to learn further in greater detail, when chachma is brought to bear to the midas, that affects a transformation of character, of disposition, to a really refined person, to an edel person. Now, the mind man looking further, I don't know if he actually, there's a lot of hasbara, why, although there's a lot of words here. I didn't finish the mind, so I shouldn't comment. See, there's more, but akaponim, the nekuda that we might want to suggest at this point, this would be helpful in understanding going further, I hope, is because chachma is objective and bina is subjective. What's chachma? Chachma is seeing the truth for what it is. Chachma is re'iyah, and bina is shmiya. Actually, here it's re'iyah and habata, which I see is going to be, it's related. Re'iyah is Habot is a scrutinizing look at something. When you're looking at something with scrutiny, so you're already analyzing it. It's already a subjective conclusion. Re'iyah, to begin with, it's the nature of sight is that your eyes open, the light travels. As we explained, why do you see something? The mountains over there, how do I see it? How does the image get into my brain? Because light travels from the mountain, enters the brain through the eye, and light is faithful. The light, unless it's distorted, but if it's the natural light, reflects that which it bounces off and carries an accurate image of that which it is bouncing off. That's what light is. Oir means that which bounces off a source. A mocker, a mo'ir. Doesn't just mean the light bulb, it means anything which emanates light, because light is hitting it and then bouncing off it. And you're seeing the object. So you're seeing a faithful rendition. It's mein amoir, because that's the nature of light. It's bottled betachlis, it's dovuk in the mo'ir, and it expresses the truth of that which it bounces off. It's completely objective experience. Everybody sees the same way if the eye is working properly. The truth, that's a matter of faith, Bamis. How do you really know? How do we really know? It's a matter of faith, like everything in life is. Even though scientifically you analyze the eye and everything, but do you really know that you see it the same way? You can't know anything other than your own experience. But the assumption is, and Torah says it is so, that people see the same way. The act of sight. Unless there's distortions, can be colorblind and other problems, of course. So that's the whereas Bina is already, the usual analogy is Shmiya. When you hear something, you're not seeing it, you're hearing one word, another word, you're constructing the whole idea in your head as you're hearing it. And you're hearing it in language. And here, for sure, words do not mean the same thing for everybody. Overall, they do, but they don't. All kinds of associations with words that you have from your upbringing, your knowledge of language. So many factors. It's a miracle we understand each other and we talk to each other. It's part of the miracle. Truth is, we don't really. To whatever degree we do, it's amazing. Given all of the hurdles, what language means and how you got it and how I got it, the association, the context. So therefore, amid an emotion, which means, amid means personality. How should I be? What's the appropriate emotional engagement and state of being of the person? So if it is bina, is what fuels it, because he understands. So I understand. This is beneficial, this is not beneficial. It's not going to change the personality. Still I am, but I'm going to be in control of it because of the benefit that's going to be gained. I learned iskafia, keep my mouth shut. The benefit. I'm hurting me, the other person. Or say nice words, because that's what a person does. You greet, you say hello. So he trains himself because he understands the virtue. He can't fundamentally change. A person who's tied up can't change himself. All I can do is change my behavior. But if it's born from Chachma, Chachma is not about the self. Chachma is about the objective truth, the complete bittul. Not a reasoned conclusion based on gain and loss. But that's the emes, that's how Jew has to be. Whether I lose or gain, reward or punished, that's not what drives him. That's that kind of bittul can change the whole personality, because it's not rooted to begin with, in the personality. It's rooted in the objective. Oh, that's how it should be.
Relate to chachma without meaning the chachma it's going to get lost in it.
Yeah, you need it. That's going to speak about that. He started saying earlier, Nakuda Beichola. It's a Lashon Hazah. You need the point in the chamber. If the bina runs wild because it's a chachma, that it just ends up who knows where. So you do need, but it's possible that the Nakuda Chachma just recedes as a guiding point. And the dominant is what's good for me. Kirvas elikim li tov. this is good, this is not good, so I will respond accordingly. But there's a different kind of his bonus, meichin the godless, which forever, what dominates even the bin. It's a question of what dominates. It's going to be chachma, it's going to be bina. What dominates? It's Kudus chachma or bina. And the Kudus, that's meichin the godless. Moishe Valenki, we just read recently, meichin the godless. And he didn't arrive at it overnight. It was 10 years. 3 years achana for yichidus and 7 years to bring the yichidus into pearl. It's not by accident. The 3 years is Chachma bin das, and the 7 years were in his emotions, but by him it was the Nekudas HaChachma. Because of the truth of Alikus, that's why I have to be a mensch. Okay, so this will help us, I think, as we go further in the Maamar. So, he was talking about children and explaining the effect of seichel on midas. So a child, the midas are very intense. At the same time, they are easily distracted. As we pointed out, that's the art of parenting. Often, it's a young child we're talking. Later gets into arguments, even arguments. It's an art to be able to distract the child. Because why? It's not born from ideology, a philosophy. So what's the Ikar Avodah? He said, I'll have answered. It's Machzedek. The holding in Chassidus is to L'shein is the L'shan is midas ativim, L'shan teva midoisav. Doisav ativim means the bad character traits, to rein them in. But then teva midoisav means to change the whole nature, even the good. Even the good midas, from good to godly, from bina to chachma, that's what he's saying. That they're based on the kurs, not on what's good. Avrom, ata yadaiti kirele kimata. The diak here is that till then the nations of the world were saying everything he did, there was no great achievement. His nature is about chesed. Bal Chesed, the point of Mesiras Nefesh, understand its value, and that's his nature, and he's just indulging his nature. He cultivated it. And now that he did something completely opposite to his teva, that indicates that the Avodah till now, even in Kavach Chesed, wasn't mitzad, because he's a Bal Chesed, because the Eibishter wants Chesed. Right. So now we're up to where are we up to, friends? In the text. Up to Ishayet? No, I think we're up to the last paragraph of Eis Dalet. Yes? Yeah, it's kind of a summary of where we're up to right now, overall. Yeah? So, friends, it's after Klolos Achiluk, it's the last paragraph of Eis Dalet. If you're looking at numbers at Ha'oresh, it's around, it's past the Ora 34, some point, considerably, another few paragraphs down. So, Klolos Achiluk be'Zeifan be'Polos HaMeichin ba'Mides. So the two different effects on Meichin and Mides is Kafi and Ishapche. Control or really becoming refined. Moichin di nikum, moichin de gadlos, where the moichin nourishes and guides the behavior, as opposed to moichin de gadlos, expansive moichin, meaning to say complete. Moichin de gadlos, and gadlos means big, but the chacham is in the kudas bitl, but it brings to true gadlos. This corresponds to the two ways we noted earlier. In the way the midas are exist, Yisrael de Le'ela b'moichin in the supernal moichin. We pointed out that it's scalalos, but bina, the way the midas exist in bina mikvois asherena is one way. That's the way of what habata. It's still the discernible. We scalalos b'chochem b'reishturim bereno there. They can be latent like the fire in the stone. So this is similar to their effect on the midas. This parallels this. The way the midas are in seichel is parallel to the way the seichel is in the midas once the midas emerge. As you now explain, so therefore what happens is it gets oisius a little bit. That when the amshacha in the midas is what drives his decision, his av and his chesed, is what is me'echa chochma, which means the objective emes. That's the kudas chochma. That's why the chochma is in the kudah, because the person, when he sees the truth, is completely, his whole metzius isn't there. It's the truth which shines. He's in a state of bittul. It's a chochma's yud koyachma. On a simple level, koyach chochma is the faculty of the soul that seeks the truth, and there's no price to, not based on price. There's no agenda. The truth for the truth. That's chochma. So there, Sheshom the mitzvah midas behela vehester can also give the midas are present, but in completely concealed way. Some midas and the midas are not differentiated and emerged; they're in potential. So when Chachma now, who has the midas there in a way of complete bittul and ischalkos, that continues to overtly and consciously drive the emotion, the decision, the love, the awe, the respect, whatever the conclusion. So what is the nature of the midah? What's the nature of the persona, the personality, the person? So this, the person suffused with this bittul of chachma. His emotional state is not my feeling. It's, I love you because you want me to love you, because that's the truth. So then that kind of emotion pales. As I say it again, as I pe'eles amshachas hachacham yana bittul shichol liyos mid statement here, mid sentence. Then he pales the amshachah pale. Amshachah chachma pales a bittul that can create, that can engender. Not only a Jew is in control of his life, but that he's able to, he's got to be a refined person, a real transformation. From one kind of personality, be a short-tempered fella, whatever it is, little patience, and that can come because he's a big intellectual. Just has no patience for someone not on his level. And then I tell you, he's seen such a chassid. And engagement and patience and love and sincere involvement in another Jew was not a. His Avos Yisrael, his chesed was because of this kind of his bonus. A bitteldik, a chassid his bonus. It means that the midah, what exactly it means by that, the midah becomes moichin, but it means that the midah is governed and fueled by this bittul of moichin. That causes ishapcha, that causes transformation. We're kind of clear. Yeah. This is what the amshacha is, mirosh surim. I don't know if this is explaining to this, but just occurred to me. That how does the fire emerge from the tzur? You got to strike it hard. Not the coal, you fan it, blow on it gently, and the flame emerges. Here, the flame is born by striking. This kind of avodah is mamash, is hammering away at one's selfish nature. Period. We're all born selfish. That's the way we're born. To a state of transcendence, self-transcendence, and that requires striking again and again and again. Never ends to produce the spark, the flame. Aval kasher amshacha b'midas. But if the conscious drive to the emotion is a bin, it makes sense, it's the right thing, the cheshbonis. I understand. Migvois asherenu, it's the lower level. And again, we'll deal in the Maamar later. So then why are we even talking about it? The goal is see later. Shekol gilu, seichel goloi. Here we're talking about seichel goloi boifin shal yisrach vas vispashtas beprotim. Here's what drives the midah, is the analysis, the understanding that he explained and he understood. Just reading the story yesterday of the Razor, the other day, whose yahrzeit was Tmuz, told you a story. I wish I had it. I don't want to distort his words. But he shared confidentially with someone. But the question was, Rabbi, his older brother. So he said someone came to see him about a problem, and he gave him advice and real empathy. And then he said afterwards, with empathy, he got into the guy's world, and really, afterwards he felt a satisfaction that he had really connected to this guy and empathized, caught himself. You're not the Rabbi. He's a great therapist. And a really good therapist that empathizes, not the academic in the book. Look up. You said that, wait a second to see what it says about that. Now he really feels, but because there was the satisfaction that I was empathetic. That has been, whereas the empathy of Chachma is completely you. That's all the feeling is you. What you're going through. Not what a nice guy I am, good husband, good wife, that I feel what you're going through. Look what I'm coming and what I'm doing. And so as I nikir, whereas bina sheyesh legam, again, seichel agoli b'vin shal yisrach v'zispashtas beprotim sheyesh legam shayches lemidus. Here is a seichel to begin with that is already agenda laden. Chachma is bittul. It starts off bittul. Could be ava, could be yida. I don't know. What do you want? But bin is already agenda laden, and as a shayches to midas, as I nikir gamba midas haseichel sheilidom seichel hashaychel midas. So throughout the whole process, the intellectual process that led to the midah is the agenda. In other words, it's forever present. He's not changing. He's just going to control himself according to the dictate of the seichel. He can control it, or he can hide it, he can contain it. A bit of extra bina, you're not going to change one's disposition. Because the midah which he produces at the bina stage is one that's shaykh to midas. And to affect the transformation, we've got to go beyond the hardwiring of the person, beyond his disposition. That's where Chachma is rooted. In the words of Alter Rebbe Tanya, Perek Lamed Day, that Chachma is the keli for itself, because you, Eibishter, your truth, not my handle on you, not my appreciation of you, but your truth. But that's not bin. Bin is already shaykhs to midah. It's a shaykhs to midah. So it's already bound to the midas, the personality, and what it can affect is control and tremendous control. Iskafia, and that's the Reishis Avodah. Okay, to be continued based on Hashem tomorrow.